Hey everybody, welcome back to Epic Maker Studio. My name is John, and I'm gonna do my own little retcon. Well, maybe not a retcon. Let's call it a revision based on new or I guess old information. So what are we talking about? Of course, the female Adeptus Custode controversy. So what do I mean by non-controversy? We'll get into that. You might have saw my other video. I still don't think this is a controversy, but we'll get into this. So to kind of a quick background, recently a lot of information dropped concerning the Adeptus Custodes 10th edition codex, and there was a throwaway line, not a line, but I can't even say a paragraph, maybe a paragraph or two, paragraph and a half, talking about a new custode that we've never seen before, never heard of, that was participating in the blood game I talked about in the previous video, Custodian Kesh. Custodian Kesh is a female Adeptus Custode. So at that time, people were first focused on the rules for the Adeptus Custodes 10th edition codex, which they've got, I hate using the term nerf, but they got nerfed. They're very underwhelming, underperforming. Initially, we still haven't seen the gameplay, but 1 + 1 is 2, right? We can still look at the numbers and go, oh, that's not good. They've gotten downgraded, kind of like Hasbro got downgraded, and Disney, I think Disney got downgraded, didn't they? It's not a good thing when you get downgraded. And I like that term better than nerf. Well, I'm going to start using that from now on. They got downgraded rules-wise, so people were already upset. And then they, I think maybe falsely, or there's a misperception or conception that the throwaway or that line about the female custode is they're assigning those two together in a weird psychological sense there. I think that they're nerfing everything, they're making it bad, and of course it's the female custode's fault. I don't think so. So that aside, what am I revising, retconning here myself? So after a little bit more reading, because this really has blown up, and I'm going to show you some of the coverage here real quick. A lot of YouTubers and a number of news sites, from gaming news to actual regular news. This thing is blown up big time. Not about the business practices of Games Workshop, their failures to produce product or the stock, and the way that they're taking money away from the friendly local game stores and not sending the product for months. Not about the bad rules writing or their quick turnaround cycle that as soon as a book drops, it's already obsolete. We're not going to talk about that. We're just going to focus on a female Adeptus Custodian and the controversy behind it, because it's going to be a DEI, ESG, woke, go woke, go broke type of thing. And it's the end of everything. And that the owners of this IP, the owners, have no right to retcon stuff, because they've never retconned stuff before, and now they're retconning, and that's not right. I mean, we're already upset because they have a female or a black ultramarine, so now we're even more upset. Yeah. Boy, that took a lot out of me. All right. So some of these YouTubers, some of them I actually subscribe to because I like their content. Yellow Flash, I know he's got a couple different communities. So he's probably altogether over 1 million different followers. He's covered in 2 different videos, and they're kind of bad videos because it's obviously he has no idea what he's talking about, which is fine. He's covering all sorts of news, from anime to video games, movies, TV shows, all that sort of stuff. And it's like you can't be in every single hobby, every single genre, and be so totally immersed in it that you know everything. But some of it he kind of talks out of his ass about, which is unfortunate because, I mean, I've watched hundreds and hundreds of his videos over the years. We have Shad over at Shadiversity. Well, in this case, it's one of his secondary channels. Night's Watch. Sometimes the Night's Watches are okay. Sometimes I think they go on a little longer than they should. Like, especially like my videos, it's like, come on, I need to speed these up. Now the guy's a bit eccentric, but yeah, he covers probably the main issue, the gaslighting of the fans. Not that there's female custodes, but the way that they brought the subject up. That I think is the issue. We've got Jeremy at the Quartering. You know, he's got like 1.6 million subscribers. And this guy is all over the place with whatever news. I mean, from local news to international news, national news, games, audio. I mean, all sorts of things. He's got his own publisher company or news company, the Publica. And I mean, the guy's pretty much top notch. Yes, he had some controversies decades ago, but they were non-issues that actually got resolved. So I like his content too. It's actually good content. He's covering it. Polygon, which 99% of the time I would say, oh God, it's Polygon. You know, I would just ignore it because it's freaking Polygon and they are kind of a woke trash company, news journalist or game journalist company. The Daily Mail is another one I was talking about, and of course the Gamer and the War Gamer, a couple other ones. And you know, people are upset. I get it. They're upset because going back to that retcon I'm doing here is that there are instances throughout the codexes that this was a brotherhood of the Adeptus Custodes, several points in recent memory. And of course we have the old school. Now these ones I'm showing you right now are the past Adeptus Custode, what do you call them? Codexes and information that might have been in like the Horus Heresy books for the first edition. I'm not talking about the novels, but I'm talking about the game. So we have that going on. Then we can go all the way back to the Rogue Trader days, which, you know, I was going off my memory the other day. I can remember what the custodes looked like, right? But I couldn't remember. I mean, it's been a decade and a half, maybe probably about 5 years, 6 years, maybe, since I've read that Rogue Trader book. And I should have just pulled up the digital copy that I have, that I got on the digital high seas, that says, "These men never leave Earth." Now I want you to keep that whole line in there. These men never leave Earth. Now, the thing that I think most people are focusing on is these men, right? Never leave Earth. We're going to cover that in a second. So there's definitely a lot of cases of, hey, here's proof that they're only men, they're only men, they're only men. Well, there's a lot of stuff out there that Games Workshop has retconned over the years, and people have not been upset about. I can only think of two things that people have been upset about. The first thing is obviously the Adeptus Custodes. That's the first thing that people are really upset about. Well, let's go with three things. The Black Space Marine, the Ultramarine from the Dawn of Fire book, when that came out, people are upset. Didn't get as much coverage now because when that happened, the DEI, ESG, wokeness, the tables had not turned yet on that community, right? That the woke community. We've only seen in maybe the past 6 months a big turnaround where people are just fed up, thankfully, with all this DEI, ESG bullcrap. People are fed up with it. But I think a problem with that is that people are targeting anything that with just the bare scent of DEI, ESG, which smells like rotten feet, that they jump on and blame, hey, this is definitely ESG, DEI, wokeness. We got to get it. We got to go after them. We've got to be cancel culture now, which I think that's a bad idea. So first off, before we go further, these men never leave Earth. Let's cover that. We know that they do because Games Workshop has retconned it. They have retconned it in their codexes, in the first edition of the Horus Heresy tabletop game. Even in their books, we know that they leave, right? So right there, already retcon. Where's the outrage? Huh? I don't. Anybody see the outrage for that? No? Okay. That's a light one to be outraged about. We can accept that. What about the Chief Librarian Astropath Ilian Nastasi? Let's talk about him. This was from that same book talking about the Adeptus Custodes that never leave Earth. This was a half Eldar mercenary that was also a Chief Librarian Astropath, which, we've already retconned Chief Librarian Astropath, but we're not, that's kind of a small thing to be upset about, but we can't have Eldar or half Eldar Ultramarines anymore, can we? And, on top of that, we got other things to talk about. Some of them minor, some of them major. And I'm going to get to that third thing that really caused some of the big controversies, if you will. When 9th edition came out, they rolled the calendar back 100 years. It's a minor thing, but they still rolled it back. Nobody was upset about that. Primarchs were just Space Marines. Yep. You're looking at those books. They were not these big towering super demigod guys that were the sons of the emperor. I remember, I never owned it, but I remember way back in the day that I remember seeing that Lehman Russ miniature, and he had the 2 wolves with him. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. I want that. I really wanted just the wolves. Now there'd be no way because they're so dopey looking. If I got it, it'd be for a collector's reasons. Space Marines were just humans. That whole 19 implant process didn't exist. And they were, what am I thinking here? I remember images of different chapters hanging out. I remember there was two different Space Marines that were hanging out in a bar. And if I remember correctly, they were at a table, they had drinks in hand. They were just badasses back in the day that ran around in power armor. They weren't what they are now. That got retconned. We're not upset about that. Orcs used to be good at shooting. They used to be controlled by snotlings. The Necrons were just mindless robots back then. But now look at them. They got this super galactic empire or universe. Excuse me, goodness. Leagues of Votann, which were the Squats. They've appeared and disappeared numerous times. When they lasted through second, they were in first edition. I feel like they were in second edition. I seem to recall them in second edition, and then they disappeared. Then they popped up again, I believe, in a Warhammer journal. It was like these, it wasn't quite I think it was like the A4 format. It wasn't quite a White Dwarf. It was just had different rules in it. And that was also, one would come out later that you got to play the Harlequins again, because they didn't have any rules since first edition. And I think Gene Stealer Cults, you got their rules in that too. Besides the point, then they disappeared. We wouldn't see them for a long time until they popped up in a novel. At least the one I remember is that they popped up in a novel with the Dark Angel book, and in the beginning of the book, the orcs were facing the squats. They were getting wiped out and everything. The squats, not the orcs. And then we move over to the world of the Dark Angels are going to be fighting the orcs. And then so that got thrown off the side. Then we would see squats pop up in Necromunda and then disappear. Then pop up in Necromunda. And then eventually we got to see them again with the Leagues of Votann. We can't call them squats, I think, for legal purposes. Okay, cool. Call them the Leagues of Votann because that sounds edgier, cooler. Maybe we'll go with that. I like that. And of course, like the Horus Heresy wasn't a thing for quite some time. And even when it did get released, it was still barely any information until I want to say it was Sabretooth Games came out and said, or had the license to produce the card game for the Horus Heresy. And that's where most of that art, that old artwork that we saw for the Horus Heresy, that came to life. And it was amazing. We got to see the Horus Heresy develop. And of course, Forge World and Games Workshop are like, okay, now we got something to base off the miniature line, the game line. Let's do this. And Of course, they did that. So, we've been retconning stuff for a long time. A lot of it's been no controversy. Others, like the squats, the custodes, our black ultramarine, those ones we've gotten a bit upset about. Now we've got the female Adeptus Custode, which is, unfortunate, because this, the timing of the controversy is just, it's stupid. It's just stupid that people are looking at the bad rules writing. I think what they're doing is, like I said, associating the bad rules writing, the years of, I'm going to say, abuse by Games Workshop. Yes, we are the ones that choose to vote with our dollars, so to speak. We can be buying this stuff, but they still use and abuse us, and we let them get away with it, except for weird stuff like this, like little lore stuff that has no impact on the game or an impact on our lives. There's no way that this is impacting your life right now, that in any meaningful way, that there's an Adeptus Custode that is a female. Imagine telling a company, hey guys, your IP, the one that you guys have owned, you've developed over the decades, 35, 36, 37 years, something along that line, since 1988, well, a little bit before 88. So you guys have been developing this and trying to make sure everything connects right. There's been years of really good. There's been spots that are bad, but this is your IP. You have no right to change anything with your property. I'm a fan. I'm a super fan. I'm a lore fan. I've got a whole blog about it. I run the wiki page, whatever you are in that relationship. So Games Workshop, you have no right, based on my feelings and my perception, you have no right to change anything. That's what we're telling them. And here they are like, wait a minute, this is our property. We can do what the hell we want with it. And this makes sense. Yes, in the past we've had issues. We've got the Brotherhood of Demigods. We got we've given up our sons to be a part of the Golden Brotherhood, that sort of thing. Okay, yeah, we did say that. But we're going to go and change it, because from a lore perspective, now I'm talking from a mechanical how they make them sense, not, hey, there's this little bit about them being men that never leave Earth. We know that their creation is they're handcrafted. It's on a genetic level. It's not like the Space Marines, which we've already stated has to be male because of this reason, XYZ. But with the Custodes, we can actually make this change, and it's not going to be a big deal, because it has no impact on the game or the lives of anybody, except maybe model collectors if we decide to make a model, or well, we'll talk about that in a second. So it really has no impact, but we're going to be customers are upset about it for no freaking reason. It's really a shame. But I do get it. I do get it from a sense that, there's things that I've been upset about, like looking at the Wheel of Time and the Rings of Power. Utter trash, in my opinion, because they retconned it in a way that made the actual property obsolete. This doesn't render Games or Warhammer 40,000 obsolete at all. It does not do anything. If anything, it expands upon the lore. Hey, we can make a tweak, a little adjustment here that expands on the lore. It makes it a little bit more forward thinking, if you will, not woke thinking, but forward thinking, because we, Games Workshop, for decades have been highly conservative, because we're British and we're very conservative. And most of us were from a very conservative time period. And we used to do the males will do this, females do that. Males can only do this, females can only do that. And that's what we've had for decades, until finally somebody's like, hey, we can just change this and it'll be okay. Now, I think what the biggest issue that Games Workshop has, it's a little hard to see, but you've probably seen this image from their official Twitter page. that in regards to female custodians, there have always been female custodians since the first of the 10,000 were created. This is, and I might have started saying this at the beginning, this is a cheeky little funny line. I think that was the intent. It was meme worthy, that it was good intention, poor execution at a time that they, whoever's in charge of this should not have sent that. It's like when former President Trump would get on Twitter and say, you know, hey, we're okay, everything's good. And then Trump comes out of nowhere and it's like, says, I don't know, words that people are just like outraged over, and it just makes a big mess of everything. This is something Games Workshop should not have done. They should have stuck to their original guns of, hey, we've made a change. We're going to let it happen. We're not going to comment on it. We're going to ignore it. We're not going to talk about it. We're just going to do it, and people will fall in line like they usually do. Their mistake was not making a female Adeptus Custodes. Their mistake was this cheeky little fun line that I really think that they were intended in good humor. It was poorly received because a lot of things going on right now in, you know, society, in with the, I'm going to call it the reverse cancel culture. Well, no, it's just cancel culture, but it's like the conservative side is now doing the cancel culture against the left, and Games Workshop right now is kind of being perceived as the left, when for decades they've been the right. But, you know, how dare they do any sort of retconning, which we just covered. You know, of course, we had the Black Ultramarine, and now, you know, we have the female Custode. So, of course, this is a DEI, ESG issue. And it doesn't really help that we have groups like BlackRock and Vanguard Group that are shareholders with Games Workshop. That's a very bad optic, because in the past, they have been ESG, DEI forward till recently, at least for BlackRock. I want to say it was last year, and maybe the Vanguard Group, but they BlackRock had came out and said, hey, we're done with the DEI, ESG. It's not doing anything for us. It is costing us money. I don't remember the exact quote, but, you know, but the fact that we see BlackRock and the Vanguard Group, that sort of thing there, we start connecting the dots to paint an image that's really not there. We're really, we're I forget what you call it, but you look up at a cloud and go, oh, that's a bunny rabbit. And the next guy's like, that looks like a dinosaur, or that looks like, you know, a cloud. So we're seeing conspiracies, we're seeing connections that aren't quite there. And I think that's what's going on here, is that we're seeing a connection to DEI, ESG, wokeness, whatever, and it's not there. Could it be? Yeah, but not a single one of us. Not Yellow Flash, not Shad, not the Quartering, none of these other writers, none of these other streamers. Nobody has proof that this is a DEI, ESG, woke thing that is happening with Games Workshop, and that female custode that has no impact on the game, on people's lives, or anything. So we need to stop gatekeeping, stop freaking out over this little piddly ass stuff. And we need to focus on Games Workshop's business practices, their rules writing, which I know that they are not a rules company. They're not a game company. They are a miniature company making the best models in the world and sell them globally at a profit. That is a corporate line. So we should be focusing on their business practices. And yes, come on, guys. They say they're not a game company. They're a freaking game company. They make games for their miniatures so we can play with our little toy soldiers that once again have no impact on our lives. So let's just get back to being mad about them for the rules, their business practices, and go hang out with our friends at the game store, play some games, show off our miniature collection, listen to our fellow gamers go, oh man, I'm such a bad person. I've got the shameful gray army here. I don't know how to paint. I'm afraid to paint. I don't have time to paint, whatever the reasoning is. Let's continue on with those stories. Let's go ahead and have fun. and not freak out over a gosh darn female Adeptus Custode. It's really not worth it. Anyways, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will chat with you later. Peace.